are all geared around a problem. Those of you who know game sets and TGFU, which started 20 years ago by Rod Thorpe and Bunker, they talked about principles coaching, which is something where you identify problems, you represent them and exaggerate them in your games, and they're normally through modified games and designer games. Okay, and these games are very, very good at eliciting things. A theoretical research perspective, which is called chaos theory or dynamic systems, and that's now being applied to game sports. And that's what my PhD is in at the moment. And we're looking at trying to measure how stable a team is and how destabilised they become. And normally when tries are scored against you, for some reason, your structure has become destabilised. So we're using terms like trying to keep shape, which is basically trying to keep stable. And how do we destabilise the opposition? If they destabilise us, how quickly can we restabilise? And these are where the roles and everything come into keeping shape. Well, we try and do this with the teams at the AIS through pressure, time and space. We have to scale it very quickly throughout a session. We don't progress from less to more, we randomise it. So in effect, like the soccer team, they play with diamonds. The Dutch football team invented it. You always have a guy in front of you on either side, so you've got options around you. If you're aware of diamonds, then that's great. But some of these young fellas who come through think, yeah, we can play diamonds. And then when I scale it up to a big pitch, no idea where the guys are. And that's great. We do that for a few minutes, then we bring them back down to a small, so oh yeah, I see the shape again. Then we go medium size. So they start to see the shape coming. Sometimes a diamond's too much, so we break it down to a triangle. And we get rid of half the diamond, and then they can just see the three either side, start moving the ball around, throw a few defenders in there, then we scale it right up again. So you've got to persist with stability and destabilise it. Don't always have a predictable defence in your training sessions because they'll become bored, they'll run off the patterns and it's not pressurised. Okay, stability will become destabilised very easy with a defence that can read you and will do something out of the norm. So someone comes out of the line, your shape can lose shape quite easily because you're not used to that sort of thing. So in the training sessions, what we try and do is create this destability. We try and get defences to do unusual things. So we get the coaches to work with the defence a lot, put hand signals up, stand behind the attacking team so the attacking team can't see. The defenders can see the coach behind the attacking team, and then all these calls are made and the defence do certain things at certain times and see how the attacking structure is shaped. So you're working more with the defence now and manipulating the environment more so than working with the attacking team. But you work with the attacking team obviously when you need a bit of shape and direction as well. Options, we limit the options and then we also increase the options, okay, in shapes. Options create information for players. If there's too much information, too many options, shape can break down sometimes, and we've noticed that with a lot of people who come to the AIS. Uncertainty. Uncertainty has to be in the structure that we try and teach, and the stability. It's all about probabilities and reasoning. What if the defender does this? Where are my options there going to be? This one's now not an option, but I've still got two inside. You need players to start to play out the probabilities and the risk-taking. If you don't have risk-taking, you won't have good players. So what we try and do is we encourage players early on at the AIS to take as many risks as they can, make as many mistakes as they can, don't worry about it. You're not selected on that. You're selected on how well you can adapt your solution or choose a new solution to the same problem. So we're trying to create thinkers, we're trying to create dynamic players, not robots. What we're sort of using here, poles, markers, ropes and ladders, is if we take this sort of approach, then what is the role of having sort of poles and markers when we're doing some sort of conditioning or decision-making thing? Well, if we make our decisions based off information, what information is a pole or a marker given us? It's not a lot actually. So when you teach things against static objects which don't give specific environmental cues, then what you get is you get movements which aren't timed right in the game. And I've seen it happen with not so much the elite but the learners coming through and coach players, particularly from schools, who are very regimented, very structured. We have to break that down in them. So we get rid of poles, cones and markers, and we use live defenders, but we limit the spaces the defenders can go into. So if we're learning sidestepping or evasion, then we control the environment, but say you've got to run through as quickly as you can, try and avoid them. So everything you do, whether it's a sidestep, swerve, whatever, is mapped or coupled off players around you. So your sidestep's timed off the play coming towards you, not off a marker. And we just increase the pressure, that's all we do. We just increase the pressure and give more power to the defenders, and it makes it more difficult for the person to actually execute their behaviours. Research suggests that attacker, defender running towards each other, 4 metres distance is where you start to get this interpersonal distance coupling. So about 4 metres from a defender, if my velocity and the opponent's velocity is around about 4 metres, I think 4 metres per second. If it's under that, then the defender's got the better of me. If it's over, then the attacker's got the better of the defender. But that was true only for learners. It's the first ever study done that I've seen that can quantify that, attacker-defender dyads, and being able to beat somebody one-on-one. But the bet is, from a chaos or dynamic systems point of view, is that that is different for each person. So really what we need to do is change the defence around in our drills, change the players around, so each time we're coupling our actions off somebody who's got different specifications, different speed, different agility. And that's sort of taking away now from using the equipment more so. Worked really well. Have used different balls just to break up the monotony. For decision making and skills, use a tennis ball instead of a rugby league ball. Even soccer we do it. We use golf balls, or we point at players. If you want the ball to go over there, just point, because what happens, it speeds the whole speed up the game. Okay, and now the defence has to work harder, the attackers have to get into shape a bit quicker. If you want to slow it down, use a heavier ball. If you want to increase scanning, toilet rolls on the ears. It's very hard to see, so you've got to move your head out like that. So we've got special goggles. It forces players to look around. Okay, they look bloody stupid, but you do get a lot of scanning, and you get a lot of pre-scanning as well. So frisbee's very good. If you go through to the golf ball, you can do a lot of stuff with the golf ball in terms of offload the ball very quickly, so it speeds the whole thing up. So if you really want to pressurise your structure and your system, start to use things like that. I'll just think of ways of doing it. A good way was the ball, in terms of the colour of the balls. In the water polo we had red, green and blue. Red was you had to score in 5 seconds, blue you had 15, and green I think you had like 20-30 seconds. So we analysed the movement patterns and the shapes and saw under those constraints what happened. And it was quite remarkable. The other constraints were points. Each of the coloured balls, one was worth 5 points, one was worth 20. You had to score the most you could in 2 groups. So the way they worked together and the way they started to strategise was quite amazing. Players got in together before, you know, you give them a bit of a sort of a time out, talk it over, right, let's go. 20 seconds, score as many points as you can. And they had their little strategies together, they had their shapes. Yeah.
What do you use for peripheral vision? I take the point about scanning.
Oh, the goggles, yeah.
Yeah, what about peripheral vision? Open up that.
Yeah, that's a very good question. With peripheral vision, what we're thinking right now is not so much what your focal vision's looking at. Your focal vision is probably an anchor point to anchor all your peripheral, which everything's pretty much coming in from your peripheral. If you're an elite player, we rely more on peripheral. If we're a junior player, we're more what's called specific focal points. So we actually have to look at certain things, and what you'll find with younger players or less experienced, there's a lot of movement. They'll fixate on everything, and that takes time. A good player will centrally focus and will see a shape in his peripheral and identify it and just, not have to look around too much. But the only time they start to move is something out of that shape changes. It could be threatening or whatever. What these do, I don't necessarily agree with them, but what these are doing, what these can do, is force head movement. You can't see peripheral, so I'll have to look now. And a lot of players, bees around the honeypot early on, they don't look. Put these things on them, they have to look. So it's basically forcing them to do something without actually having to tell them to do it. Then what you do is just lessen the length of the toilet roll, and then there's more peripheral, more peripheral, more peripheral. It's not rocket science, but it's just thinking of ways of trying to force scanning. The area that what this does is